9 videos ago, I knelt down in a dead corner of this yard, dug up a handful of soil that fell apart like ash, and asked a simple question: is this actually dead or just neglected? Everything since then has been an attempt to answer that question properly, one test at a time instead of guessing. This is the last video in that series, and instead of one more test, I want to do something different. Pull every result from the last 9 videos into a single complete answer. If you've never seen any of this series before, this video alone should be enough to tell you exactly what to do with your own dead soil starting today. I'm going to walk through this in the order the questions actually got answered, not necessarily the order the videos were filmed, because I think that's the clearest way to turn 9 separate experiments into one coherent method. Then I'll show you the final side-by-side, every soil sample this series has produced lined up together for the first time. Before the recap, I want to say something honest about why this series took the shape it did, because I think it explains why the final answer isn't a single trick, but a sequence. When this series started, I didn't actually know whether dead soil was fixable at all, or whether dead soil was even the right description for what I was looking at. The jar test in video 1 answered that first. This soil wasn't sterile, it was just badly out of balance, compacted, and starved of organic matter. That distinction mattered enormously because it meant the goal was recovery, not starting from zero. From there, every video answered one narrower question, and each answer became a building block for the next question. What actually grows better in improved soil compared side by side? Whether soil left completely alone will recover on its own. What 30 days of consistent feeding does. Whether compost ratio actually changes the outcome. Whether homemade compost beats store-bought. What mulch type matters. What happens when every method gets combined at once, deliberately, on the original dead corner? What happens when you stop maintaining fully recovered soil? And finally, what the smallest amount of ongoing effort can actually sustain. 9 questions, 1 soil, 1 continuous story. What I want to do now is stop treating these as 9 separate results and show you what they actually add up to. Because looked at individually, each video makes a narrow, careful claim. Looked at together, they make a much bigger one. A complete, tested method for turning dead soil into thriving soil and keeping it that way without it running your life.
Chapter 1. What actually made the difference? Video 1 confirmed the starting soil was compacted, low in organic matter, and biologically quiet. Few worms, slow drainage, a jar test that separated into a thin, disappointing organic layer over heavy sediment. Not dead in any absolute sense, but functionally unable to support strong plant growth. Video 2 showed the clearest possible evidence that the soil itself, not the seed or the sunlight or anything else, was the limiting factor. The same plant variety grown simultaneously in 5 different soil treatments produced 5 visibly different results. That single side-by-side comparison is what turned this from an interesting idea into a series worth actually filming. Video 3 tested the most basic possible intervention, 30 days of consistent compost feeding. Nothing fancy, no combined protocol yet. It worked, meaningfully, but slowly, and it made clear that feeding alone without attention to structure and moisture has a ceiling. Video 4 isolated one specific variable inside that feeding process, compost ratio, and found that getting the ratio right mattered more than I expected going in. Too little compost undersold the soil's potential. Too much, past a certain point, stopped producing proportional improvement. There was a real sweet spot, not just more is better. Video 5 compared homemade compost against store-bought and found homemade compost's biological activity gave it a real, measurable edge. Not an overwhelming one, but enough to matter for anyone deciding whether the extra effort of composting at home is worth it. Video 6 isolated mulch independent of compost and found mulch type genuinely changes outcomes, particularly for moisture retention during dry stretches, a result that turned out to matter enormously later in the series once the neglect and minimum maintenance tests began. Looking back at these 5 videos as a block, I noticed something I didn't fully appreciate while filming them one at a time. Each of these tests on its own only answers a narrow question about one variable. None of them individually would have been enough to justify the confidence I had going into Video 7's combined approach. It was only after isolating compost ratio, compost source, and mulch type separately that combining them stopped being a guess and started being an informed decision built on 5 separate pieces of evidence instead of intuition. That's worth sitting with for a second because I think it's the most transferable lesson from this first half of the series, independent of soil specifically. Testing things in isolation before combining them is slower than just trying a combined approach from the start, but it means that when the combined approach does work, you actually know why it worked, instead of having a result you can't explain or repeat with confidence. Chapter 2: The Combined Result and What Happened After. Video 7 took every individually tested element, the right compost ratio, homemade compost specifically, the better performing mulch type, and a deliberate measured watering schedule, and applied all of it at once on the original dead corner from Video 1 for 8 weeks. The result was the strongest this series produced by a wide margin. Jar test measurements approaching a healthy baseline, worm counts climbing to their peak across the entire series, a planting comparison where the treated soils plant was, for the first time, difficult to distinguish from what a genuinely healthy garden bed would produce. That combined result is the ceiling this whole series has been building toward. Proof that dead soil isn't a permanent condition, it's a solvable problem if you address it properly. But proving something is fixable isn't the same as proving it's practical, and that's exactly the gap the last 2 videos were built to close. Video 8 took that fully recovered corner and stopped everything for 6 weeks. No compost, no mulch, no measured watering, to find out how much of that hard-won recovery actually depends on constant upkeep. The answer was reassuring. Real decline, but not collapse. Recovered soil has genuine staying power built into it. Video 9 went a step further and asked what the smallest amount of ongoing effort could actually accomplish, starting from that declined state. 1 compost application, 1 mulch top-up, occasional watering. Over 6 weeks, that minimal input pulled the soil back to something close to its peak recovery condition. A result that, going into that test, I genuinely didn't expect to be that strong from that little effort. Put together, videos 7 through 9 tell a complete story that I don't think any single video in this series could have told alone. Fixing dead soil takes real upfront effort. There's no way around that, and I won't pretend otherwise. But once that threshold is crossed, maintaining it is dramatically lighter than most people, myself included at the start of this series, would assume. I think this 2-part structure, heavy upfront effort, light ongoing input, is actually the part of this series most likely to change how someone approaches their own garden, more than any individual technique. A lot of the hesitation people have about fixing struggling soil, in my experience talking to people about this channel, isn't doubt that it's possible. It's the assumption that it requires permanent, ongoing, intensive effort to keep it that way, which for anyone with a full life outside their garden, understandably feels like a deal breaker before they even start. Videos 8 and 9 directly answer that hesitation with actual measured data instead of reassurance alone. I also want to acknowledge the version of this story that would have made for a less honest series. It would have been easy to end at Video 7 on the strongest, most impressive result and never test what happens afterward. That would have left viewers with an accurate but incomplete picture, proof that the method works with no information about what it costs to sustain. Testing the neglect scenario and the minimum maintenance scenario took 2 more videos I didn't originally know I'd need to make, but I think they're what turns this from a single impressive result into something genuinely useful for someone standing in their own dead corner, deciding whether any of this is worth attempting.
Chapter 3. Every sample side by side. For this final video, I laid out every soil sample this series has produced that I still had preserved. The original dead soil from video 1, the 30-day fed sample from video 3, the peak combined treatment sample from video 7, the 6 weeks neglected sample from video 8, and the minimum maintenance sample from video 9. 5 samples, 1 continuous story, side by side for the first time. Visually, the progression is striking in a way that no single comparison earlier in this series fully captured. The original dead soil is pale, dense, and visibly lifeless. The 30-day fed sample shows real but modest improvement, a soil clearly moving in the right direction, not yet transformed. The peak combined treatment sample is dark, loose, and visibly alive in a way that's obvious even without a jar test or a handful count. The neglected sample sits in between the peak and something worse, declined but recognizably still the recovered soil underneath. And the minimum maintenance sample sits nearly indistinguishable from the peak, a quiet, understated proof of everything video 9 found. I ran one final combined jar test with all 5 samples in identical jars, shaken and left to settle side by side, and the layered bands tell the same story the visuals do, a clear, ordered progression from the thinnest, most disappointing organic layer in the original dead soil up through the fullest, darkest bands in the peak and minimum maintenance samples. Worm counts across the 5 samples followed the same arc. 2 in the original dead soil, 5 in the 30-day fed sample, 9 at peak combined treatment, 6 after 6 weeks of neglect, and 9 again after 6 weeks of minimum maintenance. Those numbers alone summarize this entire series better than I could in words. A soil brought from nearly lifeless to genuinely thriving, shown to hold most of that gain even under neglect, and shown to fully recover it again with only a fraction of the original effort. Standing over these 5 jars side by side is honestly the moment this whole series has been building toward for me personally, more than any single test result along the way. 9 videos ago, I didn't know what any of these jars would look like. I didn't know if the soil would respond to any of this at all, or whether I'd end up with 9 videos of failed experiments and no real answer. Seeing an ordered, explainable progression across all 5 samples matching what the plant comparisons and worm counts independently showed is the closest thing to proof I think a backyard experiment like this can produce. I also think there's something worth noting about the 2 samples that look most alike, the peak combined treatment sample and the minimum maintenance sample. They were produced by wildly different amounts of effort, separated by an intervening period of real decline, and they still landed in nearly the same place. If I'd only shown you those 2 jars without the full story in between, you'd have no way of knowing one took 8 weeks of intensive daily attention, and the other took a single afternoon of work spread across 6 weeks. That gap between effort and outcome is, I think, the single most useful finding this entire series produced. I want to close this series the way I opened it, with the same corner of dirt this whole thing started with, standing in it, looking at what it's become. 9 videos ago, this was soil I genuinely wasn't sure could be fixed. It's now soil that's been tested, pushed, neglected on purpose, and brought back with almost nothing, and it held up every single time. If there's one thing I'd want anyone watching this final video to take away, it's that dead soil is very rarely actually dead. It's usually just soil that's been asked to do too much with too little for too long. Fix that imbalance deliberately, give it real time up front, and it asks for surprisingly little afterward to stay that way. This wraps the Soil Intelligence series. Thank you for following all 10 videos, testing questions alongside me instead of just taking my word for it, any of it. The full written protocol, every measurement from every video in this series, and the complete data set is in the Evergreen Soil Intelligence Handbook, linked in the description below. When I filmed video 1, I genuinely didn't know if this would be 3 videos or 10. It became 10 because every answer this soil gave me raised a more specific question worth actually testing instead of just assuming. I think that's probably true of most gardening problems people assume are unsolvable, not because the problem is unfixable, but because nobody's taken the time to test it properly instead of guessing or giving up. If you're standing in front of your own version of that first dead corner right now, I hope this series has given you more than inspiration. I hope it's given you an actual sequence to follow, backed by 10 videos of real measurements instead of good intentions. That was always the goal here, more than views or subscribers, a method someone could actually use. What's dead in your garden right now that you assumed was gone for good? I'd genuinely like to know down in the comments.